know firstly how to blow a bubble inside another one. So it's like you blow a big one first and then you catch it and then you just aim as though you're aiming for the very center. And then keep blowing and stuff like that. Yeah, I like to see them fly and see what's the longest time they can last without popping. Maybe the most has ever been an hour, even though it's very often 10 minutes.
I always wanted to have at least 3 kids. In fact, I wanted 4 kids originally. But after Yaniv was born and into a few months, I actually thought 3 was great. But I remember the incident of, when at the time I was an educational psychologist, and I already had 2 children, Stefan and Melissa, and they were just out of diapers kind of thing. At the time, I went to see my boss and I said, "Oh, I'm pregnant again." And she said, "That's so wonderful." I said, "But yeah, but like 3 kids and 3 little ones." And she says, "The third one practically raises itself." Well, in retrospect, little did she know. It was actually much, the contrary. We had to input a lot more into Yaniv.
Yaniv coming in definitely did change the dynamic. I mean, he was a physically adorable child. He had like this, perfect
I think
blonde
the most
hair.
beautiful of all of us, definitely when he was young.
Perfect blonde hair, these gorgeous blue eyes. So he was like this very very beautiful baby sort of to look at. And he was definitely the center of attention for a very long time.
Yaniv was born, pretty much we saw him as a normal developing child, and up until about the age of 6 months, when he started losing what I perceived to be some of his words that he had learned at a normal rate until then. We started to notice a slight change in his development then.
Pretty soon we realized that Yaniv had 2 big health issues. The first one was with asthma at the time, when he had asthma, pretty serious asthma that lasted for a few years, and for a few times we had to go to the hospital. The first time I had to go to the hospital with him, Rob wasn't even in the country. There was a huge stress, and I left 2 other ones behind by themselves in the middle of the night, and I just took him to the hospital, and he couldn't breathe.
At about 1, he became epileptic as well. And we're not quite sure if that's related, but he's had epilepsy on and off.
He used to not control his breathing, and he'd go blue, his lips would go blue, and they would just come on. There were no signs. So that was something that everyone just had to drop everything. And
It was, I guess, difficult to understand as a kid how this enormous urgency could just come along all of a sudden. Because it's difficult for you to understand that a seizure can be a life and death thing for an infant.
And so really in his first year of life, we were every 3 weeks spent at least 4 or 5 days in a hospital. At the time, we didn't realize it was tough because you just go through it. But when these things sort of calmed down a bit and we controlled with medication and asthma finished, it was like coming out of a big tunnel.
So quite early on, we started to see that he saw the world quite differently, and his perception of the world outside of him was something different to what we or his siblings often perceived it. That was quite challenging for his siblings because often he used to frustrate them, irritate them. It was challenging for us as parents, but he fitted into our family, and he had a knack to wrap people around his finger and get into their heart.
So I suppose one could say that when he made his entrance into the wall, it was with a big bang. Here I am, notice me, I've arrived.
Waikato National Contemporary Art Award is a major national exhibition, and I underscore national because it's not a regional. It's quite different from the Wallace Art Awards, it's quite different from the Walters Prize because there's only 4 selected. So I guess this is the most important contemporary art award competition that enables practitioners, in New Zealand anyway, to enter something which they know is going to be on a national and international scale because of where contemporary art sits in, I guess, Aotearoa, but where the judge is placing it internationally.
I'm looking really at the submissions that artists have already made. So these are artists who are interested in being part of the award, and I make a selection from a cluster of works to group together finalists and an exhibition from which one work becomes the winner of the prize.
Hey, look at this one here. This contemporary art award. Look at this one.
Yeah.
This one's the winner.
I just can't believe why they would win.
Yeah, what do you think? What do you think about it?
I don't think it's so good. What do you think?
You know what this is, yeah?
What? From a wall?
He cut it out on a wall with a saw.
Yep. I just can't believe it.
Well, that's the thing about art.
Yeah.
It's unbelievable.
Yaniv's work I noticed in part because it was a curious mix of things. On the one hand, there was quite a fascinating use of colour and composition, and on the other hand, it had a frame which to me indicated somebody who wasn't so used to the process of presenting their work publicly. The frame was very dominant, and that would be quite unusual in a person who was really well skilled at, you know, either exhibiting their work for sale or in a public setting. The work reminded me in many ways of the work of Pacific artist Te Wane Tebow in its structure because of the very flat horizontal line and the bright colour palette. My decision to include his work wasn't based on any information I had about his personal background, whether he was a tutored or an untutored artist. In fact, there was a cluster of works in the exhibition where there was a certain kind of naivety, for want of a better word, about their process, but that could have been conscious or unconscious. The fact of the matter was that I was really interested in the result, what was being created, and all those same formal probabilities, the colour, the rich textures, the sculptural presence of the work, the dimensions, things that I thought would convey interesting ideas to the audience of the exhibition as much as anything.
Now, to be honest, Yaniv didn't really grasp the enormity of what he had achieved. And it didn't mean that much to him, but it meant a lot to see that his work was on a wall. And funnily enough, his painting was sold within the first literally 5 minutes of the end of the award having been announced.
I just hope I'm gonna prove the family that I don't need a real job. And but do you think art is a real job? Some people are saying yes, some people are saying no. Everyone's telling me that I am working if I'm doing art, even if not writing or working in vehicles or anything.
My interest in Yaniv's work, why Yaniv stands out for me is twofold. First of all, he's labelled as having a condition that is on the autism spectrum, and from my experience, there's fantastic art coming out of people with autism. Really interesting work that fascinates me. So that's one thing. Also, I know that in general, artists with intellectual disabilities are not recognized. Particularly in New Zealand, it has been quite a struggle for these artists to be recognized as artists, to be recognized that they have an innate skill, and let alone making money with that skill, the ability to actually choose it as a career option. That option is not recognized within government. With IHC, for example, they are really, really far behind by a lot compared to a lot of other countries in the world, and it varies from country to country, really. So I've become passionate about mentoring for him because I see a lot of potential there. The fact that he's very young, that he only started recently painting, sort of almost out of the blue, it sounds, and that he's having instant success. There's not many people who have that, and he might just be lucky, or maybe there's not luck. Maybe there is really something that comes out of him that really resonates with other people.
He's not like many other artists that I've met who take time to sort of contemplate their drawing and kind of come up with some sort of artistic interpretation of what it is that they're drawing. He sees something, he wants to draw it, and then he draws it, and the whole process begins and ends within about 2 hours. I saw something today in a book, I like it, I'm drawing, the painting is now drying. And he can produce, 3 canvases a day if he's determined enough.
If you look at it, then you'll see that it's not showing only Earth, it's also showing other planets that people want. Like people might get to Mars one day, which I believe.
Did you call it life, the universe and everything?
No, somebody else, Anik decided to. I just called it the planets you don't get to, but Anik said that's not good enough, it has to be way better, 10 times better, so I had no idea. Anik just chose the name.
Okay, so what was the name of the painting originally?
The planets in space.
What's funny?
I'm missing school today, that's so great.
That's good.
I just have to stay away from those children. I like that one up there because you see people are hidden in the colors.
And why would you pick that?
Imagine if you've got good enough eyes to see through. And I think if someone was a girl like you, you would see they're actually naked in the colors. My goodness. And then my third favorite is just that spinning wheel over there, because I love black and white. And I love circles.
Yaniv got an interesting competitive streak inside of him. Until a certain point, until we had the art in his life, was pretty much wasted on chocolate competitions and buying all and getting so many wrappers. And I suppose a lot of people, do that. Some people like gambling, some people like... But we didn't particularly reinforce that. We weren't particularly interested in chocolate wrappers. But the interesting part is that because he was interested in competition and the art and the combination of art, just I can't remember what happened, but one day I just heard about this Trust Waikato National Contemporary Art Award, and there was prizes attached to it, and it was a competition. And at the time, honestly, I didn't know how important it was, and perhaps if I had known how important it was, I may not have dared suggesting something like this. I honestly didn't know, but at the time I was, it's always good to be a bit naive. And I showed it to him, and he said, "Yeah, sure. I'll do something with it." And we brought, and he asked me, "What is the biggest canvas that we can get?" So we went to get a big canvas in the store. So I'm his mother. Of course, what he does is great. To have other people, judges of competition that said, "Yes, it is to be commended." It's wonderful because it just say, yeah, it's a voice that says, carry on. Sometimes it's hard, and sometimes you have to work at it more than you think, because I really pretty much have to be his informal manager, and I don't know anything about managing artists.
Well, like the first time when I got very angry, I was about to throw a painting away, that white one right here with the houses, and then I thought maybe I better do blue behind for the sky and black or dark blue for the ocean, and then put white over it if the family's gonna like that white. Well, when I do it, I think, am I gonna sell this one? Is it gonna win a competition? And then I'm always believing I'm gonna get what I want. I'm one of those people in the world, whatever they're called, who always believes they're gonna get what they want. And that's good.
There were two things that sort of really caught my attention when Yaniv started painting. One is that with his words, Yaniv is a very black or white person. He's very either or, yes or no, with very little shades of grey in between. But with his art, he's very colourful. And you can see it. It's a way for him to express something that he just can't do with language. And it shows. It shows that he's actually just got this whole other side to him, which is not so, I guess, bipolar. Yeah, it's a way for him to sort of kind of say, hey, look at me. This is part of me that I haven't been able to tell you about so far.
We were living at the time in Israel. I was studying, and he used to go to a kindy where the kindy teacher used to have a very special relationship with him and managed to get him to draw and paint quite a bit. And early on, his paintings were very unusual in that he saw houses instead of seeing houses like most kids would draw a house. He'd draw a house. They'd draw a house as a box with a roof on it. His houses were very, very, very tall, with windows one on top of the other and a door below, often in bright colors. And we developed his artistic talent at that stage. What we saw was quite unusual and very pleasing to the eye, but very unusual. But it didn't last long. There was about a year or two of that, and then he refused point blank to touch anything. No pencils, no crayons, no paints. One of the big problems he had with paints early on was the issue of finger painting. He doesn't like the feel of things like dough or putty. Anything that sticks to his hands bothers him a lot. That's not unusual with kids with this Asperger's syndrome, which is what we a few years later discovered that he in fact was diagnosed as.
looking back at the lifespan, if you want, and yes, there was, I agree with Rob, there was sort of I could call a latency period in the art where he did not want to touch color or painting. But there were other interesting things. He always loved, for instance, bubbles, soap bubbles, and he developed this incredible dexterity and expertise in making huge soap bubbles and of all sizes, and soap bubbles inside of other soap bubbles, and just pretty incredible stuff. And so through soap bubbles we could do a lot. So one time I remember thinking, I was very involved in the rat race, career woman, etc., and worked a lot, which we needed to do to support a family. But at some point, I thought to myself, okay, well, I train executives, coach executives in leadership, and I am just going to do the same thing with my son, and there's no way that I'm going to let him down and not, help him if there's something I know. So I decided I'd take a clean break of any professional activity and just took him with me to my hometown, to Paris, and he liked tall buildings as well. So we went to the top of the Eiffel Tower, and there we had soap bubbles, and also he didn't, Paris, you need to walk a lot. But if it was about getting some soap bubbles into a shop, yes, we did. So we went through, kilometers and looked at all sorts of shops. And what was interesting in there, I'm talking about sort of a creative and even an instinct to lead and be different. In the park, in the playground, all kids are equal. And in Paris, most kids speak French, but he didn't speak French, but he had soap bubbles. And so pretty much after 5 minutes, we enter a park where we knew no one, and he couldn't speak directly to children. Pretty much 5 minutes into that, you see this row of kids running after him, and he's in front of them with the soap bubbles, and he found a way to make some connection that was not through language. It was through drawing, through visual, and that's why I was only half surprised when he started painting, because the visual aspect was very predominant. So I remember that incident as pretty telling.
That love of bubbles is carried through until today, although you can see the change in Yaniv from then until now, because part of his thing was that he would just go over and over and over the things that he loved. And he's changed because even though he still loves it today, he's able to put it aside. Every now and then, it'll happen again. It was his birthday, and he insisted on us going to Auckland to the 23rd floor of a very beautiful hotel, and he paid for the entire family to go and stay there, and he had his bubbles ready to blow off the veranda into the sea in Auckland.
When he was at school about 2 years ago, he was required to take art as one of the subjects at school, and he was not keen on it at all. But his teacher managed to find a method of persuasion, and he was encouraged to participate. And he produced a lino cut, which was a very simplistic outline of two bodies. Looking at it as an abstract piece of art, it came out very, very well, and he won a class award for it. That encouraged him to look at the potential for doing other things, and each student had to make a portfolio and a board with all their stuff, and they had a timeline. Now, one of the things that he really gets him going is a timeline. If he can first finish and he can beat everyone else, that's something that got him going. And he produced an enormous amount of art. And when we looked at it, we thought, well, this is actually not just, he hasn't just won in time, he's done an incredible amount of fantastic work.
Oddly enough, even if it's for the wrong reason, I'm still happy, but he was able to do better than other students. And by better, I don't think that the quality of the stuff that he produced was better at all. But there was one interesting thing, is that he could do it faster.
And he was given a lot of encouragement and a lot of support and a lot of praise for his outputs. That led us to try and kick into moving in and seeing if we could work on canvases. And we bought canvases home, and he was reluctant at first to try it because he likes to do stuff at school, which he doesn't do at home. He does stuff at home, he doesn't do at school. He likes to compartmentalize life. And getting that continuum between home and school was quite an issue, but we managed to eventually get some canvases and we got going. His first displays were in the now defunct vegetarian restaurant in Hamilton, La Commune, and he had his first exhibition there, where they used to take art from different artists and hang it on their walls for a given period of time. And we had an opening evening where there was a lot of interest, and he actually sold some paintings.
When he started winning all these awards, it was difficult to tell whether this was sympathy or whether this was the real thing. Was he getting all this attention because he was the autistic artist? Was he getting all this attention because he had any kind of genuine talent? So the first time he won an award, to be honest, I didn't have this huge reaction to it, but he just kept on winning awards, and he just kept on getting into competitions and kept on, his exhibitions went to other countries, they went to other cities. Tamarillo down in Wellington had an exhibition for him, Sands here in Hamilton had an exhibition for him. And it all happened so quickly. It was all literally within a year or so of him starting his drawings.
My role as a mentor is in a way a tricky one, because I'm in an educational position in relation to Yaniv, and yet I'm very hesitant, I'm very careful about what I present to Yaniv. So what is really important for me is not to influence his creative process, either by presenting certain techniques or just presenting a curriculum of sorts to him. And I'm lucky that I work within a school that doesn't necessarily stick to a curriculum. They have lots of resources available, but we are allowed to diverge from that to support the artist and whatever their goals is, and that's really important. I come from a creative process angle, and that is a very different approach. And I look for cues within either Yaniv, his creative process, in his body language, or in the end result of the paintings or whatever it is that comes out of him, to see what I need to present next, if I need to present next. At this moment, I see my role as encouraging Yaniv, confirming for him that there is something unique in his work, make him aware of his own uniqueness and of the expressions that come out of him, that it is worthwhile. He has the validation in the fact that his work is being sold, so other people like it. I come from a different perspective and therefore may have a different influence in that. I may be a different voice in that scenario.
He likes saving up his money, and he found out that in fact potentially there were clients who could buy some of this work. As much as we didn't encourage any commercial approach to his art, he seemed to be very stimulated by the idea that it had the potential for sale, even if it was a few dollars. And we've had to find a fine balance between, on the one hand, there are costs to art and to canvases, but we're happy to promote that without any income per se, but for him it is a real incentive to actually understand that he can potentially sell his art. And in fact, today, in as much as that is relevant, he sees himself as becoming an artist and actually potentially living off that.
Phew. No. If we find out I'm in the finals of the Wallace art competition, then we go to for the celebration for 2 nights. Yeah.
Pretty exciting.
Very.
When are you going to stay in your hotel again?
Well, hopefully in the 17th, if we hear that I'm in the finals of the Wallace competition in Auckland, then we go straight there, and that's perfect.
And what room number again was that?
907.
And it's down the road from what?
And you see the view of the city.
And what's your favourite thing that's down the road from it?
Israeli sweets.
So what street is that on?
You're not going to believe the address. 100 on Grey Street. It's exactly 100 on Grey Street in Auckland. Very easy number to remember.
Street. I don't know Grey Street, but I can find it, but I'll remember 100.
Yeah, 100. One of my favorite numbers. Unbelievable. And we really believe we're going to win. Hopefully. Well, first place is New York for 6 months. Go to special places. Second place is San Francisco for 3 months. And third place is Los Angeles for 1 month. And extra thousands of dollars of cash.
What would you do with the money?
Maybe buy very expensive paints and canvases which can't have now. Yes. Through the center. Yes. Oh.
Who's going to get that one?
Have to think about. How do you think my muffins are? They're what? All right.
Yaniv practice is particularly important because of the condition that the medical world has attached to him. And that label inherently has in it that he may have difficulty communicating with other people, with understanding or interpreting or expressing emotions in a particular way. And that is at a verbal level, in a language level. And when we look at his paintings, how he could connect to his paintings is amazing. You know, how many people have already bought his work, not just in one country, but multiple countries. That means that he is connecting to people. at an emotional level. And it is fantastic that he's able to do that through another medium. If he would have never been presented with that medium, he would never have that opportunity. He would never have that connection. He would never have enhanced those people's lives. In that way, art becomes a venue, a platform for Yaniv to interact with the world at large.
If you had the choice of anywhere in the world, where
Yeah, that would be where we're flying now, to Israel. You know, Haifa, my favorite city in the whole world. That's where Stefan was born, and I was born in Jerusalem down south. So I really wish I was in Haifa. It's also beautiful mountains from Nick's parents' house, which we're going to in 61 days. And they've also got the Israeli sweets. And my favorite beach in the whole world, I keep telling my aunt that it's much better in Raglan, and she keeps saying that's much better, but she's wrong. Too many reasons. Haifa's my first favorite city in the world, and Auckland's my second.
Yeah, you see. Anyway, we have a tradition of getting together on a Friday night for dinner. It's called the Sabbath Eve, and it's a traditional thing that we've all really enjoyed over the years. It's almost like you get to the end of the week and you're just drawn to be together because your week has been busy, you haven't really had much chance to interact, and a lot goes on. And so we spend time together. For Yaniv, it's been a real high point of the week. He's the main organizer, so you'll get a call earlier in the week, maybe the Thursday or the Wednesday, to say it's your turn, and who are you inviting? So he likes to know who's going to be there. He has a particular dish that he cooks for each one, and that never varies. It's always the same. It's his unique needing things to be consistent. And getting together around those tables, whether it's at my house, at Robin's house, at Laura's house, has been a real ability to witness Yaniv's journey as well, because there was a time when he would eat and run. And so the meal was the thing. His ability to socialize beyond that was pretty non-existent, so he'd eat and he'd go and lie on the couch or go and play his computer games or whatever he did. And as he's grown, he has developed the ability more and more to stay with us. And whether or not he participates in conversation, which sometimes he does and sometimes he doesn't, he's interested sufficiently to sit and stay with us and listen and learn.
What, you drawn everyone's forward? I need some help with the pizza.
I think they're really important. I think that our children, and therefore all the cousins, have learnt also a different way of being together, because cousins are not necessarily friends. The cousins have learnt to be together, again, accept each other's differences, and I'm not sure it would have continued had Yaniv not been the motivator behind it. So, yeah, he without knowing it, is a kind of catalyst within the family and with his art.
There is a great danger with outsider artists to be discovered and be put on a pedestal, and it's a fleeting thing, because then whoever is really interested in promoting artists or discovering new talent may move on to the next thing. And that happens a lot in the art world. You know, you have favorites, and being a favorite is the worst position to be in, because it also means you can fall out of that position very easily. And it is important for Yaniv that something sustainable is going to be developed for him. That's not just riding on a hype or just because he's won an award. No, there's something else happening that is really worth supporting. And it may be his only way of ever having an income that comes from his talent.
Thanks very much, everyone, for being here today. This is, as you can imagine, a very, very special evening for us. Just very quickly, it's about 2 years ago that his work was exhibited in the museum across the path. And for the past 2 years, it's been an incredibly fast and amazing career. We count finalists in some major exhibitions in the country, 32 exhibitions, we counted them this morning, 3 international ones, one in Paris next year. He just signed a contract with the Paris agent. 2 books. The second book is going to be distributed nationally by Bennett's and Whitcoulls. And 10 awards and scholarships. So the last scholarship is Arts Waikato for next year. His aim is to exhibit in Te Papa and in the Centre Pompidou in Paris. So Yaniv, I'm sure you'll do it. His passion is environment and climate change, and he uses his art to move people, to bring emotions and especially actions, because as you know, we need to act in order to stop the effects of climate change, and that's what Yaniv wants to do. But what I want to say is to talk to you today, because there's some very, very special people in the crowd. I just want you to know that Yaniv's teachers from primary school, from intermediate school, and from high school are here tonight, and their principals, and it's amazing for us. I hope they each take a slice of some of the success, because that's been amazing to be supported by people like you. How does it feel to cut through your painting?
Speaking of which, do you reckon the weather's going to hold out for tomorrow?
There's a lot of synchronous coming together that Yaniv actually facilitates without knowing it, and in a way, it's a comparison with his art and with his painting, because in my view, Yaniv's expression bypasses his conscious mind. His expression comes straight out of his subconscious mind and is untainted by the intellectual critique. He does not critique himself. He knows what he wants to do, and he does it. And it just comes straight through. And I think that's a unique aspect of his art and of his being, of who he is. So he also facilitates these things with the highly proactive management of his mum, who does the level of things that he will never be able to do.
Rich people tell the poor people that the island is flooding.
Oh, so if this water level rises,
Yeah.
the rich people must tell the poor people because they can't see.
Yes, that's right. Behind the mountains, and
Why are some of these coloured and some of them are not? The
well,
houses.
you would know that rich and poor people, they either can afford what they want or can't. So rich people, they have the view on the mountains at the back over there with the colours, and all of them have orange windows. They show their lights and stuff, the beautiful lights. And ones by the ocean here, they have the view of the ocean, but they're right by the beach, so they can swim.
Right.
And all beautiful houses of rich people, they afforded their own gardens, the same color, to all guests and families coming, so they know they're in the right house. The house is the same as the garden.
Right, so they plant the same colour as their house because they like that colour, because that's why they bought the house.
Yeah, and any house they go to, their own or somebody else's, must have orange windows if it's on the mountains.
Right. It'd be nice to come in here and see a whole lot of red dots, wouldn't it?
Well, what red dots?
Red dots on numbers.
Yeah.
That would be nice.
Yeah.
Wouldn't you like that?
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right.
Can we sit down here and have a look at this one? I love the way you use so many different colour blue.
Thanks.
So what's happening there? It looks like the sea is right at the houses. What's happening?
That's saying if you don't hurry up and yell for help, people hear you, or you can't even make your own houses from your boats from trees or anything, or you can't even swim to the next island. Keep going until you get to the big continents, reach the middle of the continents. Then your life is gone.
Your life is gone. So that's about water levels rising, is it?
That's right.
I mean, is that little bit of gold underneath ours, is that beach?
There's the beach, yeah. Some
so
sand.
The water's already right up at their front doors.
It's like maybe 1 day away.
1 day.
Oh, sorry, no, I mean a year.
A year away.
Yeah.
So again, you want people to look at that picture and think about what's happening in the world.
And they better take a boat and save them.
And do something.
Yeah.
Not just think about it.
Right.
Right. Oh, look, the fish go that way and that way.
Yeah.
Why is that?
Well, it's like they're heading away from the really deep sea where there's no animals. They know that they will die if they don't hurry up and set off in a direction.
Okay. I didn't realize that. So that's what the sea will look like if all the creatures die.
That's right.
And that's what the sea looks like with everything living and healthy.
Yeah.
And those blue things, those blue and brown things, what are they?
It's like what humans have taken pearls from the ocean. They find them on those kinds of shells, and then they take them and sell them.
What's that place?
It's also islands, bigger islands than the one back there. And yeah, some people have no idea. If they come to the beach, they don't remember how much sand there was left the other day. Day before that.
One morning, they're going to wake up.
And they think, oh, their fault, they should have done something about it. Next time they know if they get to another island.
Not to build so close to the beach.
Right. Do you want the tsunami to come to your face? So it's like...
Yeah, but I mean, with a tsunami, you're always going to have an earthquake first, aren't you? So you're going to know about it.
Well, I never heard there's an earthquake before a tsunami.
Yeah, that's what causes the tsunami.
Oh, I thought the tsunami only comes from deep ocean because...
From deep ocean where there's been an earthquake.
There's been a... Rob never told me that.
Yeah, because that's why the plates under the sea bed move.
Yeah.
The water all pours in there and then comes...
Yeah.
And that's what causes
like
the tsunami.
A bomb underwater or something.
Exactly.
Right.
If you put a bomb underwater, it's going to bring a big wave.
That's right.
But that's water level rising. That's not tsunami.
Right. 2
drowned islands.
Yes.
And how come is that cloud going over the top of the trees?
That's, sometimes it's, foggy weather. Yeah, windy, foggy. That's in Haifa and Israel.
What's that temple called? The one in the picture?
The Baha'i.
Right, the Baha'i temple. It's a famous place in the whole world. And
yeah.
And that thing in the corner, that golden thing?
It's just a special church. Don't know the name, just a special church of Jerusalem.
I know, it's called the Golden Dome.
Don't know.
The Dome of the Rock or something like that.
Yeah.
But so you've brought something from Jerusalem into Haifa?
Yes, so it's
well, that's
one
interesting.
side. It's like where I was born and my favorite city.
What's this one?
The big blue one?
Mm-hmm.
That's the end of the world.
Oh my goodness.
That shows everybody that do they want that.
So there's just nothing left?
Yeah.
So there's still just a little bit left?
Yeah.
And some trees. That's really scary.
Yeah.
It gives you that feeling of the end, doesn't it?
Right.
What do you feel when you see it?
Yeah, I feel the end of the world.
And how does that make you feel?
Yeah, it doesn't make me feel good.
We all lived very separate lives and on different continents for a long time, and yet we're all here in the same city in Hamilton and not very far from each other. And though we're all very different, there's there's a way that we are with each other, which I find quite interesting, because families who are very different, really not manage together, and we do. Despite our differences, despite our quirks, I think that comes from being around Yaniv and around Yaniv's family and supporting the family as well, supporting Rob and Anik and supporting Melissa and Steph and Yaniv.
When he was growing up, he used to have kind of trouble showing excitement. So he went through a lot of different phases of showing excitement. Like one of the first ones was jumping on his knees. You remember that?
Mm-hmm.
He would just get excited and just jump on his knees.
Yeah, he would hurt himself in order to show excitement.
And then another one was banging on the chest, and then Mum told him, clap your hands instead, so he clapped his hands. But I think this is kind of maybe a development of that, you know. Maybe that's how I see it anyway. His art is kind of him expressing himself in a less overt way.
When he paints, he's just totally relaxed. And it's something very unusual for Yaniv, because when he does something that he's very happy about, he usually gets so excited that he ends up hurting himself. I mean, like Melissa said, jumping on his knees, smashing his fist against his chest. He got into a point where he'd start bending his own fingers, like out of excitement. And I mean, things that would actually look quite painful. But with his art, he's just totally calm and just totally at peace. And it's, it's quite cool to see.
I'm one of those people in the world, whatever they're called, who always believes they're going to get what they want. And that's good.
My name is Craig Hawke, and I'm the permanent representative of New Zealand to the United Nations. And I have particular pleasure to acknowledge and welcome the Minister for Social Development and Disability Issues, the Honourable Carmel Sepuloni. Welcome, Minister. I also want to acknowledge Yaniv Janson, the artist, and the Janson family. Welcome to the United Nations.
Yaniv is committed to the Sustainable Development Goals of the United Nations. Through his art, Yaniv is inviting you to see the world through his eyes and to understand and strive for a better, fairer and sustainable world. Yaniv would like everyone to work together to achieve this, to create a world that is good for all, now and in the future.
I'd like you all to touch the exhibition. Usually in the UN we say, don't touch. No photos, but tonight I'm saying please do touch.
We are all honoured tonight to recognise the talent, the vision and achievements of visual artist Yaniv Janson. Yaniv's creative journey has expressed consistent themes to empower individuals to use creative expression, to outreach and use education as a tool for social change. Yaniv's work has been celebrated in New Zealand and internationally, and his list of achievements and impact is very extensive. The recipient of the 2019 Arts Access Pack and Save Artistic Achievement Award, Yaniv Janson.
I really want to thank Arts Access Aotearoa for giving this award to me It's a great honour to be here in Parliament tonight. It will be a big push for me to continue with my art in the way I have been over the last few years. Thanks very much.